everybody, welcome back. I'm Brian Mahoney, your host of OTT Executive Podcast, where we interview luminaries in the industry, get to know a little bit about them and a little bit from them. I'm thrilled today to introduce to our audience Greg Rowe. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Brian, it's really nice to be here. Very, very cool stuff you guys done. I watched a lot of your podcasts, and I'm glad to be on it.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And folks might have seen the news last week where I've joined the organization as COO of Freestyle Trampoline Association and the CEO of the new Flippin' TV, which we'll talk about, our new OTT channel. But before we do that, Greg, we just want to get to know you a little bit and a little bit about your background. Tell us about Greg Rowe.
Yeah, I'll give you the short version of it. So I was born in 1990 in Moscow in an orphanage and brought to Canada when I was 5 years old. And from there, I basically got socialized as a nice Canadian. I did snowboarding, did curling, did all the Canadian
You
things.
did
Besides me,
curling? Oh my gosh,
I
that's so
did.
cool. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to do that.
Yeah, well, it's giant shuffleboard. My parents would hate if I say that, but it's giant shuffleboard. I like shuffleboard. It's a great bar game, but it's like a giant version of it. It's great. It's good times, and yeah. But so I went through all of that normalcy, I guess we'll say. But I really kind of attracted to the gymnastics, acrobatics, moving side. My parents basically said, "Greg, stop flipping off the couch. Get outside and go somewhere else." So really quickly, when I started flipping off the fence, then they said, "Okay, this is bad. We're gonna get him into a class." So I get enrolled when I'm 5. I don't even speak English at this point. I'm just blah, blah, in Russian, VHS tapes everywhere. Me just, kind of thing. Fresh off the boat from the Iron Curtain falling, recently, obviously. So I'm one of the lucky guys you can imagine. And from there, I went through the whole, what we'll call the Canadian gymnastics system, the Olympics side. So for those of you who don't know, the gymnastics is obviously in the Olympics, but trampoline is also in the Olympics. These are separate sports under the same umbrella of acrobatics, we will say. And I went through the whole system from 5 years old all the way to my early 20s, and was on junior national team when I was 16, 17, quickly went to senior, and then was on Team Canada for a few years, traveling, doing some competitions, and basically said, you know what, I think we can do a better version of this. I was going through my university kinesiology degree at this time, so I was putting a lot of science behind questions I'd already been asking even as a wee little boy. And let's just say that gymnastics community didn't have any answers. And I said, okay, well, we got to do a better job than this. How come I'm embarrassed by wearing tights? How come I'm embarrassed? I'm top like 10 in the world, and I don't want to tell anyone at my school that I'm a top athlete in this sport. There has to be a problem here. So when I looked at it, I said, okay, let's apply some of the science and psychology and say, you know what, we're going to do a freestyle version of this. We're going to make it more modern, right? Because a lot of the gymnastics is still the leotards and just the way that everything is so prim and proper, and there's not much personality and stuff like that. It really stems from the 60s and 70s when gymnastics was in its golden age for sure. And if you talk to people that are, more experienced than me, obviously, they'll say that was the golden age. And then during the dot-com bubble, things rapidly shifted. And we can talk about that a little bit later in terms of the industry stuff. But me kind of seeing this, living through it, it kind of got my head thinking, what's a better option? And I ended up getting a call from Nitro Circus, Travis Pastrana and all his buddies. This was 2015. And I was, again, on Team Canada. I was in the throes of everything, but I was already looking for an exit. I was like, this just doesn't make sense for me. I'm not going to make any money on Team Canada. Rosie McLennan won 2 cycles in a row and nobody knows who she is. Like, these are fundamental sports problems that I was noticing, so it's okay. But I got to then work with Travis and the CEO of Thrill One Entertainment, who owns Nitro Circus. And I got to sit down with these guys and see behind the scenes how the professionals really do it, right? And that really opened my eyes, because a lot of people don't realize that the gymnastics industry is full of volunteers and people that don't really do sports as a professional job. Like the head for European Trampoline Association is an English teacher, you know what I mean? So, or was, but either way, that kind of gives you an idea, right? So when you get to see the real professionals that really build sports for a living and fill out stadiums and the way they see it, the light bulbs went on. I fell in love, kind of thing. Yeah, Bruce, the MC's on the mic. Oh, let's go Brisbane! The whole audience just screamed with him, and I was like, Greg, you're on. I'm like, oh, great. I'm so mesmerized, kind of thing. I do my set. It's all good. And they picked me because they saw my videos. I used to be an influencer. I was the first, you could say first trampoline influencer that really took trampoline videos, even for the Team Canada training, and put them on YouTube on a compilation 1, 2, 3, 4. And that really got my name out there. So everyone knew who I was. was the first one to really take it seriously and really go and make a Facebook page. This is 2012, 13. Social media was just kind of catching on to the mainstream. And I jumped on quite early. So that gave me that platform. Nitro Circus gave me the idea. This is where we can go with this. This is what we need to go for the new generation, because kids aren't wearing tights anymore. They want our Willie and Travis. They don't want whatever this is over here. So I made that kind of bet, but I got the behind the scenes. From there, we end up finding these kids. We call them G-Trampers, or they call themselves G-Trampers. I didn't know about them. I didn't invent it. I just happened to go, I was on social media and I was like, oh, hey, this kid just did a quad backflip on a Walmart trampoline. What on earth? And I just like, holy moly. Hey, Trish, check this out. This guy just smashed his head on a fence, and I'm like, oh, these are her Nitro Circus athletes, right? Because at first, you're like, oh my God, like you don't want people to get hurt, of course, but you realize very quickly, start watching more and more of these videos, and there's clearly a culture here. There's something happening that just complaining about safety is not going to help, and this is kinesiology will teach you very quickly. There are human behaviors that do something, and there's just flapping your gums for no reason, right? So we said, okay, we got these guys. They have energy. We can use that energy. Okay, this is great. So we have our vision from Travis and all the guys. We now have some athletes. Let's put them together. Let's do a first competition. We'll call it the Garden Trampoline Games, right? And we ended up teaming up with a manufacturer, the only manufacturer that actually made high-end backyard trampolines at that time, because most people buy one, you jump around, you break it, then you sell it, or you throw it out in the garbage, kind of thing, a couple $100s. That's what the culture was before. We did this event in 2017, the GT Games in Escondido, California. And all of a sudden, Fox News is there. People are awesome there. A whole bunch of media outlets, even the New York Times came, and we didn't even expect it. We just thought we were taking some kids out of their backyards, doing an online submission. Hey, guys, submit your videos on Instagram, because that's where they all lived, and they're communicating online and everything. And Johnny Flips and Flips by Tim and Alex Flips, and these are all their handles on social media. And so we said, hey, guys, submit your best video. You'll get a chance to go to GT Games. And we didn't pay them or anything. It was literally just an invite only. Let's just do a fun brand promotion with this brand called Skybound. Really nice guys. But that was the start. It was nothing more than that.
That was the start. So that was the first event.
That was it. And from there, we said, we were like, we'll probably get 50 kids, whatever. It'll be fun anyway. And we were just a paid gig from my perspective. I was not really investing yet. I was just a guy being hired because of my influencing to then go and be the MC and do all that. And that was it. All of a sudden, we saw something like 2,000 submissions coming in from like 35 countries. And we're like, Israel, Australia, Japan, everywhere. I'm like, do they even have trampolines in Hong Kong? Kind of thing. And so we realized, hey, there is a real community here, not just a bunch of crazy kids, but there's a community. We can shape this community. We can work with them, help them understand the safety regulations and how to build up as an athlete using my Team Canada information, but repackaging it for the youth of today. That was literally all it was. And we hosted the event. It was great. We had no major injuries. I think a busted ankle or something like this, but nothing crazy besides what the traditional critics were saying, because they saw this videos online during this time, and we're just saying, it's so dangerous. Come into my gym and pay me money because I'll make you safer. You can see the undertow there a little bit, but we ignored all that because, luckily my biology background made me realize what not to listen to. So we kept steering ahead, and one of the parents ended up doing a article about the sport board on Instagram. That's the moniker that she developed, and all of a sudden got picked up everywhere. And all of a sudden we're the sport board on Instagram, LA Times, New York Times, Ellen DeGeneres, Steve Harvey, Wall Street Journal, everyone picked it up. We did the whole, ride the media wave kind of thing. And all of a sudden we had a market. And from there we said, okay, this is so cool. We didn't know we would just blow up like this. We had no idea that people that New York Times was there. We just, what's this? And all of a sudden my phone blows up one day. Imagine my face. I wake up and my inbox like this, right? So, but I quickly called up Trish. We didn't rest or, relax at all. We said, this is now when we start. We got this community. Let's go. Let's now pop up all of these events all over the world. So from 2017 to 2020, COVID, we basically did 300 plus events in 30 countries. And we basically backpacks in hand, just train, plane, boat, canoe, whatever we had to do, all over the place, but shaking hands, kissing babies, meeting the parents, meeting endemic brands being the operative word there, in the trampoline world, trampoline parks, clubs, coaches, manufacturers of equipment, stuff like that. And they built us this base. And with that campaign of giant proportions for 3 years, nonstop, no holidays, no nothing, 3 countries a week on average for 3 years, nonstop. That was literally what it was.
So let me pause you there, because there's a lot to unpack, a lot to digest. So you were a traditional trampoline Olympic athlete, right? One of the best in
I
the
did not go
world.
to the Olympics, to be very transparent. I did not go to the Olympics. I was top three in Canada, though.
Got it. Okay. And you were a sort of, a little disillusioned or looking for something different. It sounds like there's a lot of parallels to like the snowboarding or the skateboarding community. It's about expression, and yeah, it's a little bit riskier, edgier. Maybe talk to that a little bit. Were you trying to influence and create the vibe, or were you kind of, capturing lightning in a bottle and sort of seeing this community evolve on its own and kind of jumping on top of that, so to speak?
It's a little bit of both, right? I,
Yeah.
I am an entrepreneur. I am always looking for cool deals and cool ways to build a career that I like. And I
Mhm.
saw that trampoline. My prediction was that it was going to get de-Olympified in the next few
Mhm.
cycles or so. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to sink on this ship. I'm going to go make a new one. It happened to be that we found a bunch of athletes out there, and they weren't athletes; they were kids at this time,
Mhm.
out there at least trying to do something. Then catching the lightning in a bottle, as you say,
Mhm.
but I was already thinking along the same way, so it was a little bit more serendipitous, we can say.
Yeah.
That came together, and from there, we had a group of young athletes that were gung ho, making posts all day, every day, really trying to get out there. Me, as I guess the pushing, steering the boat forward with a bit more
Mhm.
experience than they had in the business realm. Trish is the business entrepreneur
You're
that
gonna have
took.
to. You mentioned Trish a couple times. Can you introduce who's Trish?
Yes, I will. So Trish is my business partner, or now
Okay.
one of my business partner. Welcome to the team, Brian. She was
Mhm.
the original, and she basically took a scrappy young kid from the collar and said, "Hey, you're going to need to rethink your career here with Team Canada. Let us get you on a better track." She built up the entire Subaru Rally team from nothing more than free Pirelli tires for a bunch of weird backwood hicks, going nowhere, and built them into a multi-million dollar North American championship winning team, actually, in the space of a few years or so. So she
Okay.
knew exactly what was going on. She's already done it in rally
And
racing.
marketing, logistics, the events, like yeah, okay.
Mentorship too, obviously I
Mhm.
learned tons, but it was the fact that I'm getting myself booted off Team Canada because I'm telling them, hey guys, we got to do more. What Nitro Circus said, oh, you guys are losers, why aren't you guys doing what they're doing? They're so much better. And that obviously is not the best way to approach it, but
Mhm.
again, a young kid kind of thing. She kind of said, hey Greg, there's a right way to do this. I understand your energy, but there's also a wrong way. You're doing the
Mhm.
wrong way right now, Greg. Let's help you do the right way. That was the big switch. The rest is stuff we both learned together as we've gone, but that was,
Okay.
you just need someone to you know pull you from the bootstraps a little bit and say, let's wake up here if you actually want to do this. So that's
Okay.
where she came in.
So
And
you saw this opportunity. You kind of you jumped in. The GT Games was the and for folks that don't understand the lingo, that's like the background garden trampoline, the background trampolines you could get, at Walmart or whatever, right?
yeah,
Not the big giant ones. But kids doing amazing things, posting their videos to YouTube, social media, right? And you're inviting them there and you're kind of building this community. What were some of your early challenges? Like, how did you organize yourself to, kind of get to that next level?
well, in terms of doing the logistics and everything, again, with Trisha's help and my already contacts in the trampoline world and my notoriety, it wasn't too hard to call up different trampoline parks and clubs and athletes and influencers and say, hey guys, check this out. Come and be our judge. Come and host this event here. Pay us a few $1,000 here or there. Blah 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 blah. Kind of doing some
Mhm.
endemic brand crowdfunding. Essentially, that was actually quite easy.
Okay.
What really was the challenge for us was trying to figure out what to deal with the traditional guys, because, like you said, we are a lot like snowboarding in the 80s. And whether you like it or not, basically, they saw us as a contender to their way of life.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to go into all the biology and psychology at play there, but basically, we were the bad guys trying to destroy their sport they loved so much. From 1881, the FIG had started its roots. So it's an old sport, it's an old military sport. They have their way of behaving and they're acting and telling the world that they're like a certain way. And we were coming in and basically, with a bunch of kids in their backyards, giving them the middle finger, essentially. And as it then got more popular and more news articles came out, this only just threw oil on the fire, really, because they just thought, oh, Greg's a crazy guy. He's just going to, peter out. A kid's going to hurt himself, and that'll be the end of it. They'll lose their insurance. It's over. Well,
Mhm.
after the 70th event in the first year, then all of a sudden they realize, oh man, this is only getting more steam. And now people are going to their clubs saying, hey, do you guys have a freestyle class? You have a G Tramp class, garden trampoline class. G Tramp, for those who don't know, is more like a recreational version of freestyle trampoline, which is like the professional version. But they're both on the same spectrum.
Okay.
And we're
So
start
sorry to
asking.
interrupt again, but Tell me about the profile of the athletes, though. Is there something special about a freestyle trampoline athlete that's different from, I don't know, someone that chooses to play lacrosse or basketball or baseball?
I would say that they're very do-it-yourself.
Mm,
Again, not a huge basketball. I played a lot of basketball. I'm from Toronto, but in terms of the economic structure and the personality traits, you typically will go to a basketball team and say, "I have a coach." You'll sit down with a coach that tells you to take a knee and all that, and you will follow the game script, and that's it. These guys are a lot more peer-to-peer. There is no coach really. It is I'm coaching with my buddies. We're kind of experimenting together, breaking down barriers together as a group. There isn't this hierarchy in traditional
mm,
sports. And this was the big factor, I think, that made me kind of fall in love with it because I said, hey, you don't have a coach just ordering you around,
mhm,
telling you what to do for better or for worse, but you don't have that structure. But
mhm,
no, we just hang out with our buddies. We take videos and post them online. And my buddy just got 2 million views last week on one of his videos of a double backflip. Oh, that's all? He's like, yeah. And then they go
mhm,
to our events, and then we're the ones that create that structure so that we created the demand to get them out of their backyards, kind of doing not much productive really, besides just hanging out with buddies, and say, no,
mhm.
we can actually make a pathway here now to a better stage. And
Okay.
this is actually our way of actually making them safer because you're creating the demand for safety and high
Mm.
performance, which come together really when you think about it. And that's what we did for them.
Okay. That's very helpful. And, every sport kind of has a vibe to it, a culture. It sounds like the athletes are more independent oriented,
Yeah.
more self-directed. They have their personal styles, and it's not like this conformist kind of, mentality, which is really what you were escaping from. Let's take it to today. Where is the Freestyle Trampoline Association today? Yeah, what's an update in the organization?
Well, as of 2025, we are now a holding company with multiple subsidiaries underneath. We have a media department. Thank you, Brian. We now have the live events. We do 40 plus events annually a year and across 20 different countries. And Trish is the CEO of that subsidiary. I'm part of the esports side. So I am developing the entire global digital ecosystem. Imagine a digital twin, what they call it, of the real life that what Trish is working on over here. So athletes can go to an event, they can bounce in real life, take a little rest under a sun tent, and then they can play the exact same level that they're out there. They can literally play it and earn crypto or earn experience points or merchandise or whatever it is. So I'm running with that because, in this day and age, everything's very digital. So
Yeah.
if you're not already doing esports, you are decades behind because F1 and all these guys have their own digital esports. So I'm working on that. We have our training centers, which hopefully the first one will be popping up at the end of this year. I can't say too much
Okay.
more about that quite yet. Then we have the educational subsidiary where we work with Ski Canada, Snowboard Germany, Ski Latvia, the Nitro Circus guys. I coached all of them for their action figures movies. And we work with lots of different groups. We do all the Woodward staff training. Woodward's a big action sports camp with
Yep.
scooter, BMX. So these subsidiaries all come together, but act more like a franchise. And they work all over the world. And we have operators in every country that then do the local stuff. We, as the FTA and the GRT Global Holdings, then collaborate everything together and
Okay.
then pitch it to the big brands and do the big deals.
And I think that's a big thing. And I've written a lot and done white papers and webinars and a lot of research in the space, this concept of community, that the media and entertainment industry is really kind of changing because it's not this linear, you create content, you push it out, and, that's pretty much it. And there's, eyeballs and viewers and ratings. It's really about engaging the community, and the community could be the participants, the creators of the content, in this case, the athletes, the fans, folks that are actively going to events and maybe just watching it online, as you mentioned, esports. And it's really about what are all the different ways, what are the different touch points with the folks that are interested in your content, or in this case, your sport. Talk about community a little bit. How is that changing the nature of sports and content in general?
Well, in general, even take a back step before we even get to the content side, which is a huge aspect of it. But you're seeing this general trend away from, let's call it, traditional hierarchy structures, communism being the big one kind of thing, to more free markets and people saying, I want control over my life. I'm not going to have some dictator tell me what to do. There's enough education out there that's free on YouTube and online, and enough different ways for people to interact and different conferences and stuff like that, which were way less in the 60s and 70s. So there's information is abundant now. So now people are taking a lot more responsibility for themselves on how they behave in this world. And from there, the other things are flowing. Now you have these UGC kids, user-generated content athletes, they're saying, I don't need a coach. I don't want a coach to take half of my credit for me. I want to say, I did it. I went there and figured out how to solve that skill or that puzzle, we'll say, and I was able to do it. And they can give themselves a, I say 100% of the cheese, pat on the back, B.F. Skinner, rats and cheese and stuff, so that's what the world you live in now. So entrepreneurial ship is flying, just Shark Tank, Dragon's Den, all these kind of shows are all helping. They're all pulling this in, but you're seeing this general movement to, I want to control my own life. So now how that goes into the sports world that we're in, we have taken hierarchy structure that is, you line up, and I remember you couldn't sit during training, and some of these things are very good. Like I never sit during training even now because I still appreciate what that means. But we're in a different world now where it's hard to get the kids to understand that. So the kids want to lead by chart. So now coaches almost have to step back. And in our world, in the freestyle world, there are no real coaches. There is coaching, but there's not like a class structure where everyone knows you buy the license for it. No, that doesn't really exist as much. A lot of the times the kids just bounce around with their buddies, filming it, throw it online, and they all communicate online. Coaches rarely enter into it unless you're at a trampoline park, which they do have some classes. But again, the coaches stepped back. They're throwing the mats. They're asking Johnny, well, what do you think about that? Oh, I think I got to rotate more. I'm going to try facing this way. The athlete is now the one really leading the charge. And from a psychological perspective, it is always better this way. You have a lot of coaches that are, not so inclined on the biology and psychology at work here because they just never studied it. And they kind of think that unless someone's going to tell you the answers, then you're not going to understand. Problem is when someone does tell you the answers, the psychology shows that you don't actually understand it because all you've done is taken a handout from somebody else and your brain doesn't actually understand it. You're not the one really in charge of learning that thing. So therefore, subconsciously, it's not conscious. You're just doing this automatically. You're just automatically not embracing, not absorbing enough of it as you go. So what's happened with this whole culture and the community that we built, they're all do-it-yourself athletes out there hustling on their own. And we come in and help them with some structure and say, Johnny may not want to do that, but we can't go and like force them to do this or that. They're really leading the charge. We are there supporting them like a life jacket or a helmet, but they're the ones deciding to go down the river, if you get what I mean. And I think
How does that change? I mean, because obviously, anytime you're going to manage a community or sport, you have to have some level of structure, right? It can't be a complete chaos free for all, but you want to capture that free expression. How do you harness that? How does it change how maybe you do judging, right, for your competitions? Talk to that a little bit because you do need some structure, but is it more kind of guidance, and kind of, sort of rewarding free expression? How is that different with freestyle trampoline?
For us, the way we've done it is, again, we understand that a lot of these kids, especially when we first started, they were all 13, 14 years old. Their brain wasn't developed. They had no idea. They just knew that they wanted to be rich and famous, basically. Had no idea how to get there, kind of thing. So what we did, though, that's different than from the traditional side that I experienced, was that you basically have an NPO, nonprofit organization, that sits behind closed doors. No one knows what they're doing until they report their quarterly earnings or losses, in this case. And they just sort of report that, and no one knows anything. Parents might go to a meeting once in a while, but they don't do anything. They don't get any decision making. Me as the athlete, I don't even know who the president of Gymnastics Canada is. I've never met them. I don't care about them. They don't care about me. There's this huge disconnect between the top of the food chain and the very bottom of the food chain. We have basically made that almost zero now because we are the top of the food chain, and kids can message me all day, every day on Instagram. Hey, Greg, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And if I don't have an answer, I say, hey, talk to Freestyle Freddy, AKA Trish. She'll have the answers about this. Or, hey, talk to Andy. He's running that event. Okay, well, I do know this one. Yeah, for esports, we're doing this. And we have this communication. It's a lot more of an equal group. We've taken this hierarchy, it's like this, and we've now made it a lot flatter. It says, no, I'm one message away from all of these kids. So they are part of the decision-making process now. When we do our judging system, they are in on it. It's not made by some 70-year-old people that way back in the day have a legacy on their side, but nothing current, we'll say.
So like rule changes and stuff that the athletes themselves will participate in that and agree to it, or okay.
They are hosting the events in many ways. We're teaching them. I have guys in Israel right now, that Sagi and Nev, that are literally saying, Greg, I want to start a new business. I want to build freestyle trampoline in Israel. They are 20-year-olds,
Hmm.
but I now work with them. I coach them. We have a spreadsheet. And I say, okay, well, but this, I'm teaching them how to do email marketing and all that. And I literally work with them and help them go. But they're the ones leading the ship. I am just here kind of giving some advice. I am on the back burner. They are the ones that have to show us that they care enough to do the effort, but they are the ones leading it and we're supporting them. It's a different
It's so
structure.
funny that you say this, Greg, because I mean, a big complaint for any true sports fan, whether it's hockey or baseball or, football or basketball, whatever, is there's a lot of criticism of sort of the corporate office, right? Dictating things that trickle down to the athletes. And I mean, back in baseball, you couldn't have long hair, things like that, or beards. And what you're saying is you listen to the athletes, they're part of the community, they're kind of running the show, and you're kind of organizing it, providing structure to it, providing an audience for it as well, right?
Yes, it's the structure. You do need someone that says, guys, let's not land on our heads on CBS Sports. So you do need some stuff like that. And
Yes.
once in a while, we do have to put our foot down. But we do it really creatively. And I don't know if I should say it this way, but like when we do the judging system, all these guys at first, one of the big criticisms was that they would just kind of land in a heap on their heads, basically on a mat, and they're fine, but it doesn't look great. But when you go to them, and the traditionalist guys said, "Oh, see how dangerous that is," and they just kind of freaked out and went after the morality card. Basically, I looked past the morality card. Being a biologist, you have to kind of look past that morality stuff, and I got right to the brass tacks. This is a human behavior that these kids have chosen to do. This, you have to start at this level. I call this the dolphin principle. If you're going to train a dolphin, you got to start with the
Mhm.
dolphin's natural behaviors. You can't just automatically expect it to change overnight. That's not how
Mhm.
that works, right? So we said, no, all right, guys, but here, I can either yell at them and, be safer, land all your skills on your feet, blah, blah, blah. Or I can say, hey, guys, I talked to so-and-so at this media network. He gave me a really good idea, and I believe in it, that if we land all of our skills and put that to the rules, that the
Mhm.
final skill should be landed on feet. He thinks that the audience is going to like you guys more and be easy to sell you guys to bigger
Mhm.
brands and bigger media networks. When I just simply take a safety argument and yell about it and switch it into a positive value for them,
Mhm.
I get the same positive results, but they like it. They're not
Yeah.
fighting against me. I'm
So
actually
instead
there.
of punishing them, you're rewarding, certain behaviors or, moves or whatever that, sort of are more inclined towards safety, right?
100%. So I'm not caring about safety. I'm just communicating in a way that someone like a behavioralist, a B.F. Skinner of sorts, a William James of sorts, and these psychologists and
Mhm.
guys that really put together that information from way back in the day. And we're instead, I love that one quote from B.F. Skinner. He says, don't criticize the rat for what they did wrong. Find what it did right. And I
Mhm.
do really believe that you find the one thing. Yeah, they'll do 100 wrong things during a combo, but if I find that one
Mhm.
thing they did right, yeah, Johnny, you went a little higher, you landed a little bit better. Oh my God, that's so
Mhm.
great. Can we do that even more? When you simply switch it to that,
Yeah.
their eyes light up. They love it. It's just that simple.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time. I want to cover just, if you could talk to the future of the sport and the community, your vision for how things are going to grow and evolve. Yeah, so let's do that.
Yeah, wow, we're going everywhere. I can't give away too many trade secrets, but we have
Mhm.
some big announcements coming up, hopefully for the end of June and all that. So stay tuned
Mhm.
for that. But basically, what we've done over the years is that we built up the market in 17. That was just endemic trampoline parks. We now, because of the success of World Champs in 2022, our very first one, in 2023, we had a girls category. 2024, we had a juniors category. We now have all of our kind of categories set up, and the success of those broadcasts now are getting us to major festivals all over the world. So we have now the trampoline parks that do the regional qualifiers, we'll say.
Mhm.
Now you have to qualify to a major festival. These festivals, they'll have 30 to 75,000 people at them on mainstream stages, but they're action sports stages, not just some random event. They are specifically picked as action sports. We are repositioning trampoline as an action
Yeah.
sport. And this is now where we have now teamed up with a lot of different festivals, and they have BMX, skateboard, scooter, Urban World
Mhm.
Series being one of them. And all these guys now are feeder systems to the world champs, but these are in front of 300,000 people now. So what we're doing with that is now wrapping that with major corporate brands, the bigger guys that really want to come in and say, hey, this is a cool new sport, like snowboarding in the
Mhm.
80s. I want to jump on that. And that's where we are now packaging that with bigger brands that can take it to the whole other level. But then
So the big sponsors, if you want to get in early in a cool new growing sport and target this youthful demographic, right? Get in touch. Is that the, is that what
100%. Get in touch. You
you,
get it while it's going good because we have a lot of irons in the fire and a lot of people want to be part of something new.
that's
And then
awesome.
this is where, Brian, we wanted to work with you, obviously, because you are a media bigwig. I don't need to, go through your resume, but if we can package those events within your
Mhm.
media talent and just understanding that landscape, I will make the digital side of it from the
Mhm.
esports. So you got all the gamers and all that sort of the tech side, VR, AR, cryptocurrency, NFT marketplaces, iGaming. Yeah, we're doing it all. So leave that with me for a bit. But then we open a training center that will be franchised everywhere. We already have the franchise legal paperwork done for all of North America.
Mhm.
So now we'll have feet on the ground everywhere. So if you want a franchise, come talk to us. But then we have the educational component that now works with other sports properties. And we are now teaming up with other sports properties saying, guys, we can help you. Use our media network, use our B2B network, work with some of our sponsors. So we're big brothering the whole flipping community
Yeah.
and helping all of them elevate themselves to a more mainstream, not just TikTok and YouTube viral videos, but now a mainstream spot on an ESPN and NBC or something like that,
Mhm.
which is where we are now being placed. So this is where we are going.
Very cool. And Greg, throughout all of this conversation, and I think, if people get to know Greg, if they don't know him, the level of energy and enthusiasm and vision for you inject that into everything you do. And I think, for any, new sport or new community, you need a leader like that that sees what the future can be, but also has your ear to the ground to what's happening with the athletes and, respecting their vibe and their individuality and their free expression. So kudos to you on that. We're almost out of time. Before I let you go, I have to ask you any, particular sort of hobby or interest, something about Greg Rowe that, that you want to share with our audience.
Well, there's actually a couple. So I'm a very artistic person. I did art school even when I was a kid and stuff like that. I ended up taking up guitar and taught myself how to play tabs and stuff like that, reading sheet music. Rage Against the Machine, Tom Morello, got me into guitar. I loved it. And kind of funny now that I'm raging against the machine. How funny is that kind of
That's
full
true.
circle when you think about it? And from there, I learned piano. So I learned, Fur Elise and Beethoven and all the, the big wigs and stuff. Yeruma is my favorite. He just has such a nice flowing style
Mhm.
that I then got myself a piano with all the pedals and stuff like that. Taught myself to read sheet music there and everything. So I've always been very artistic, which is really, really funny because they call it artistic gymnastics, which is where I come from. But it's
Mhm.
literally everything but artistic of any kind. There's no
Mhm.
art there because what it is a code of points. You pick and choose the skills that get the most points, and then you just do what everyone else does, which is not art. So for me,
Right.
I'm actually trying to inject art back into trampoline to say, guys, no, we're celebrating what's different about you guys. I want to see if you're going to play piano, you better play a different song than that guy. If you're going to pick
Mhm.
up a guitar solo and you got the picks going like 1,000 miles an hour, it better sound different than that guy. You better use a
Mhm.
different wah pedal. You better do. And we are now taking that art, the love of art for me, and putting it back into trampoline, which is colloquially said it's artistic, but it's not in the
Yeah.
real world, and that's what we're doing. So I actually got that from a hobby, but I've infused it into my career. But I look at my career as a hobby. So you're talking about
Mhm.
energy. This is
Mhm.
natural for me because I just generally love what I'm doing and I get to build something. And if we can harness that energy of every kid out there, I think you see a much better world ultimately.
Yeah, well, I totally agree with you on that. And I think it is the marriage between the community, the sport, the artistic expression, the no rules, but also this idea of the interworking of all the different piece parts and stuff. It really is inspirational. Kudos to you, Greg. We'll be keeping an eye out. I'll be on the inside keeping an eye out for sure of the future of the Freestyle Trampoline Association. It's been awesome talking to you today, Greg.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Really happy to have you as part of our journey. And we're going to rumble over the next little bit, and people are going to love what we got to announce. So thanks for having me on your podcast. I'll come on anytime you want.
Sounds great. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate this. Once again, this is Brian Mahoney, president of the OTT executive community and CEO of Flippin' TV. We'll be hearing more about that in the coming months. And I've been joined by Greg Rowe from Freestyle Trampoline Association. Thanks, Greg. Great chatting with you.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, signing off, everybody. Have a great day.